Africa in Focus is a show that is designed to bring you news, information, analysis, and commentary concerning Africa in a manner that is cogent, accurate, and time-conscious, because we know many, if not most of you, or all of you rather, do not have enough time to catch up with the goings-on in your respective countries, as well as Africa for that matter. For that reason, we have created a show that is very precise, very short, to bring you up to date with what you need to know, at least what we believe you need to know concerning the continent. As part of our show, we intend to reinvigorate Pan-Africanism to reflect a new thinking of this noble idea brought to us by our forefathers to Africa, who borrowed it from our brothers here in the United States. We aspire to produce a weekly show where we hope you will learn something each time you watch the show, and you'll be happy that you've taken the time to watch it. We also hope the show will inspire some of you who are not so inclined to follow politics to do so, and for those of you who are in leadership or in African leadership to speak, can take something from what we show, what we talk about, and do something about it, especially the issue of good governance, which we focus on quite a bit on the show. That is very critical for the development of the continent. We have designed the show such that each week we'll be looking to talk about 2 to 3 countries, sometimes more, depending on the issues that are pertinent for that particular week, and also depending on time. So you take your time to watch. Maybe we'll be covering your own country. If not, we'll still like for you to watch, because some of the issues that we'll be discussing are pertinent to all countries in Africa, and they're relevant. Therefore, your time will be worthwhile to watch the show. So come along as we'll put Africa in focus today. Welcome back. You're watching Africa in Focus on Afrique Today TV. I'm Samuel Omwenga. Before we highlight the countries we'll be speaking about today, I'd like to take a few minutes to discuss a concept known as Ubuntu, which some of you may be familiar with. Others may not, but we have taken time to discuss this because it does relate to the concept of Pan-Africanism, which is at the core, central in the shows, or this show, and the topics that we discuss. The word Ubuntu has many different meanings in South Africa, where it originates from, in the tribe of the Zulu. Even among the Zulu, there are different meanings ascribed to Ubuntu. And also in academia, there are different definitions of the term itself. Academics or professors who look into this and study Africa issues have not really come up with an agreement as to what it entails or what it should be seen to encompass when we talk about Ubuntu. So rather than going to that debate of what it is or what it's not, I think it's important we just take the words of Nelson Mandela, who it really espouses and embodies everything there is to know about Ubuntu or Ubuntism. Asked what he understood Ubuntu to mean, Mandela used as an illustration, an example of his own childhood when he was growing up. He said in those days, those old days as he referred to them, when somebody in Africa was traveling, a stranger, somebody unknown to villagers or where he has traveled to, when they arrived in a village, they were welcomed. They didn't have to ask for anything. They didn't have to ask for food. They didn't have to ask for water. They didn't have to ask for anything at all, but the local villagers will welcome them, take care of them, entertain them, give them anything they needed to make sure they were comfortable and enjoyed the experience. According to Mandela, that is one aspect of Ubuntu or Ubuntism. However, there are several different aspects of it, all of them related to this spirit of accepting and trying to do something for your brother or sister, regardless of your affinity relationship with them. Indeed, Ubuntu encompasses many virtues you ascribe to or relate to somebody like Mandela, which are such as respect, being helpful to others, caring, compassion, trust, and being unselfish in whatever you endeavor to do. Mandela did clarify, however, that Ubuntu doesn't mean that one cannot do what it takes to take care of themselves in the hopes that others can take care of them. The question is, as Mandela put it, are you doing now, or are you going to do something that will enable the community in which you are, where you live, to be a better community around you? Or is it something that is going to make it worse or make no difference? According to Mandela, if you're doing something that will make a difference in improving the community, then that is something that all of us should aspire to do, and we will be appreciated for having done such, exactly what he did himself. Ubuntu as a political concept, however, is a little different. It's somewhat of a socialist concept, but not in the pejorative manner socialism ascribed or known to many, especially those in the United States. It is really, simply put, a means by which we can achieve national objectives which bring about equality for all the citizens or the people of the particular country, keeping in mind that not everybody is going to be able to tap into the natural resources equally. Some countries, we've talked about marginalized communities who never benefit from the national cake, so to speak, because those in power never take those people from those communities as worth doing anything for them, knowing fully well there's nothing they can do to stop them from disregarding their needs, as they often always do. Now, the question is, how does Ubuntu relate to, or is it similar or different from Pan-Africanism? In my view, they're the same. They both aspire to uplift a community, to uplift people's standards and welfare. However, I would think the only distinction, maybe a distinction without a difference, is Ubuntu goes a little further to encompass full humanity, not just the people of the African continent, as Pan-Africanism is designed to focus. There are three levels of Ubuntism that I can see. One is individual Ubuntism, societal or social Ubuntism, and governance. For individual Ubuntism, the question is about providing for your family and those who depend on you. The question Mandela would ask in that context is, are you doing enough to present or to provide for your family? If you are, then you're therefore making a contribution for their welfare and well-being, which is a good thing. If not, then obviously you will need to do more to do what is needed to be done to provide for your family such that you can improve their livelihoods consistent with the spirit of Ubuntism. That is probably the most remotest attachment to Ubuntism in meaning at the individual level. But the more you start progressing from individual to societal to international, national, and then international, then Ubuntism becomes even more clearer. Because at the national level, which is the next level, societal level, sorry, at the societal level, this is where, as a society, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing what it takes to take care of and protect our interests as a society? And this includes a number of things. First and foremost is in selecting those who represent us. We know that in most of the countries in Africa and everywhere else, representative government is a form of government. People do actually elect their leaders who make decisions about resources they have, how to distribute those resources, how to exploit them, and so on and so forth. That level of contribution in society as a community is important in Ubuntism, because you are supposed to not cast a vote or not to elect your leaders on your own selfish or individual. Remember, one of the virtues in Ubuntism is unselfishness. In the context of societal Ubuntism, you're supposed to be looking at things from the context of how does this benefit the whole society, as opposed to how does it benefit you individually. Granted, there are many things you will do as an individual that can benefit you as an individual, but they will also benefit society. For example, if you're going to elections and you're voting, make sure that you're electing members who are going to represent your interests in commonality with your fellow brothers and sisters who would stand to benefit or not benefit according to who you're voting for. So if you know clearly somebody is not qualified or is not interested in the community's interest to be in an office that they're seeking, and you vote for them anyway, then you're not contributing or you're not participating in what Ubuntuism is about. We also have a delivery of services during off-campaign seasons. For the longest time, it's always been elections are held every 4 years, every 5 years. In between elections, there is actually governance which is assumed to take place, but in most cases it does not. Because those in most recent times, anyway, what we have seen is those who are elected, they go back into a permanent state of campaigning. So therefore, they have no time to really focus on projects or development or things that they campaign for to begin with as they're busy campaigning for the next season. That, in essence, is what Ubuntuism is. In a nutshell, it is a belief that there is a better calling for our endeavors other than for our own individual survival. If we can find a way to put our common interests together as a family, as a society, as a nation, as international nations, then those efforts will yield better fruit for everybody, as it will be collectively something beneficial to all of us. Otherwise, it will be a situation where, yes, you might be able to survive on your own, but the benefits won't be as large because you cannot live in an island. You live in a society where you have to interact with people. If you're living in a society, you might have a big house, a big car, but if you're surrounded by people who don't have anything, it's unlikely that you're going to enjoy that much property or wealth that you have unless you see to it that you take care of those individuals who do not. It is, again, a form of socialism, but it's not a socialism in the traditional way people speak about socialism, which is usually very negative. Now that we've seen the connection between Pan-Africanism and Ubuntuism, I'd like us to focus on what is going to be our countries of focus for this week's news and analysis. And for that, we'll come back to speak to you about them on the other side of the break. Welcome back. This is Africa in Focus. I'm Samuel Omwenga, your host. If this is your first time you're watching this, and if you're watching this on YouTube, please take a moment and click the button down there saying like, so that you can start seeing this show coming up first among those that come on your channel. And if you click on the notification, you can also be notified immediately we post something new on the channel. Again, Africa in Focus is a show that we've designed in a way that we try to give you brief analysis of news, rather brief summaries of news, analysis, and commentary from affecting African news. Today, we're going to speak about two countries that we've selected as we usually do. But before we do that, I'd like to update you really about one of the countries we covered in the previous shows. A couple of shows ago, we spoke about Kenya. We gave a lengthy discussion about what is going on there related to what they call BBI, or Building Bridges Initiative. The most recent news from there is the second president of that country, Daniel Arap Moi, died a few days ago at the age of 95. Now, his death is being celebrated. He's being given a state funeral, becoming, or rather, deserving of somebody of his stature, somebody who ruled the country for 24 years. You would find as many African leaders, he has a lot of his supporters, people who love and admire him. Of course, you'll find also those who do not. Question is, what has been his contribution? What was it for the country, for the continent? That's a very big topic. I don't think we have time to get into today. However, in the future show, I hope we will have time to discuss it in more detail. For today, we're going to focus on two countries. One is Malawi, the second one is Senegal. Starting with Malawi, opposition leaders and supporters in Malawi have been celebrating after a panel of 5 top judges and now the results of last May's elections in that country. Now, this was the first time the elections were nullified in that country, and I believe it is the second time, only the second time in Africa, when elections have been nullified by a state court, or rather, yes, a state court. In this case, it was not the highest court, as was the case in Kenya, where the Supreme Court there annulled the elections which were held in 2017, prior to the second elections which were held subsequent to that, couple months later. And this was back in 2017. But for Malawi, this was the first time. And opposition leaders there say this is a big victory for democracy because they were able to demonstrate, they argued and they were able to demonstrate in court that there were irregularities in the vote that saw President Peter Mutharika narrowly elected as president. And worse than that, he was also elected by less than a majority of the votes cast. The total number he got, at least according to the records, were 38.6% of the total vote, with just under 159,000 votes separating him from the nearest competitor, who was Lazarus Chakwera. The court ordered a rerun of the elections in 5 months. It said the vote should take place under different rules. Mutharika himself has vowed to appeal the ruling. Now, what's interesting about the ruling is they did not say that the elections were stolen, as is often the case in many of these countries. Rather, what they said was there was widespread misconduct or widespread and blatant misuse of the public resources, and also how the votes were conducted, that to the court's view, the integrity of the results was severely compromised. That's why they say this. That's why they threw away the elections and say that new elections have to be held. This may not be an important distinction, meaning the court not saying outright that the elections were stolen and saying what they said, meaning which is they did find that the elections were not good enough to withstand scrutiny under their constitutional review. It's a distinction without a difference, because ultimately they did reach the right conclusion, and that is to throw away the elections and call for new ones. The judges argued that Malawians deserve elections that are free of systemic abuse. The judges then directed Parliament to consider removing all the officers or all the members of the body that is responsible for conducting elections in that country from office, because they were responsible for this electoral misconduct that took place, for which the elections were nullified. These electoral commissions, as we know from past experience, it's never really been any different from country to country, no matter where you go, you look at in Africa. They have never, ever done what they're supposed to do, and that is to conduct free, open, and transparent elections. These electoral commissions, bar none, they're always accused, and often there's plenty of evidence that they've been compromised such that they are not able to deliver what they're supposed to do constitutionally. The court said enough is enough of this. In Malawi, at least, it will not be happening anymore. And they made it very clear that if new elections were to be held again and the same misconduct was found, they will still nullify the elections. They will not hesitate to do that. The court also implied that those who were responsible for this electoral misconduct should face prosecution. They did not call for their prosecution, but they implied in the decision that they should be looked upon. These officials who were in charge of running this election should be looked at very carefully to see to it that they can be held accountable for what they did. One of the recommendations that they put forth is to say that they say they annul the elections on another ground, and that is the fact that President Mutharika got less than 50% of the votes. That is unconstitutional. So they said in the future, a president can only be elected if he garners more than 50% of the votes. Now, question is, what is next about this? We don't know. Again, Mutharika has said that he's going to appeal the decision. And if he does, if the Court of Appeals takes it, that might delay things. If they do, the expectation is that the court should be able to affirm what this 5-judge court has ruled, 5-member court has ruled, to say the elections were null. If they do not, or if they overturn that decision, then it will not be because of facts or evidence before that court or any court before that, simply because the ruling was so strong, very well reasoned, and the evidence cited to reach the conclusion they did was very strong. It is unlikely that they would do so, and if they do, meaning the highest court can overturn that, and if they do, that would be a travesty of justice. We don't expect it to be the case, As we wait for that, we'll give you an update. We hope that is the case anyway, but we'll continue following the story and let you know how it plays out. That's all we have for Malawi. Next, we turn our focus to Senegal. Welcome back. This is Samuel Omwenga. You're watching Africa in Focus. Today we're talking about two countries in Africa. Malawi, we just finished discussing briefly about. Next we're talking about Senegal. Senegal, most of you probably know already what this might entail, but it's a big story happening there. And this is involving Senegalese American musician and actor popularly known as Akon, who is building his own city in the country, not surprisingly called Akon City. Akon originally announced plans for the futuristic crypto city in 2018, saying that the city will be built on a 2,000-acre land that was gifted to him by the president of that country, Macky Sall. The new city will also trade exclusively on its own currency, cryptocurrency cash called Acoin. According to his website, this new city is going to be built just 5 miles away from the international airport in Senegal. Akon has previously said he wants to make the biggest impact in Africa, adding if he could do so, if he could have his way, Africa will be the United States of Africa. As of many of you who have been following this know, this is not his original thought. There have been many consistent again with the concept of Pan-Africanism who have said that they would want to do the same thing, meaning make Africa be like the United States. One of them was Muammar Gaddafi before he was killed. That was one of his visions he wanted to create or be able to accomplish in his lifetime. That never came to pass. There are others who have taken that mantle. Now Akon is saying that he would like to do the same thing. This is right up there with what Nkrumah had as a vision for Africa, as noted before, and what is at the core of Pan-African itself. When I first heard about this story, I applauded. I was very happy to hear it and applauded it. But it's also not surprising to hear about this, because Akon has evolved from a successful musician to what he calls a societal entrepreneur, meaning people like him investing in projects that they stand to make money, while at the same time benefiting the communities that they invest in those properties, or rather in those investments. Usually the situation is there are people who have natural resources that needs to be taken off the ground, for example, but the government is unwilling to do that, maybe because of, again, the marginalization of some of the communities. For many different factors, investors themselves are not interested, many factors. But people like Akon, what they're doing is they're taking their own money, taking the risk. That's what entrepreneurs do, taking their own money to get those resources off the ground. Or in this case, what he has done already, in the case of Akon, was to create off-grid energy stations, or power supply stations that are making money. Yes, it's making money. It's not philanthropy. It's not contributing. It's not donating it. But there's nothing wrong with that. That's what entrepreneurs do. The difference between somebody like Akon and others, there are those who come to exploit and they don't give back to the community. Those are the ones who can be condemned, or people not to be happy about. But what Akon is doing, more power to him, and more power to those who, like him, want to spend their own money to make these things possible, to make these enterprises possible, which not only reinvigorate or re-energize the economies, but they also create real opportunities, especially in employment for many unemployed in those countries. We'll showcase in future shows what Akon and other successful artists are doing to unite and uplift Africa in the spirit of Pan-Africanism. We'll also showcase a growing trend in African Americans looking to Africa to either move or to live there. African countries, in West Africa especially, are taking note of these and trying to take advantage of it as well. As we previously noted in this show, Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo is one of them. And they have actually taken steps in that direction to organize one of its kind, at least one of their first international trade show here in the United States, which is scheduled to be held in June, later June, early July of this year. Those are all good developments, they're good things, again, consistent with the theme that we've been highlighting, or at least have as the core underlying principle or underlying theme in these shows that we are preparing for you of Pan-Africanism. That is the spirit. That is what is needed. More people willing to come to Africa to do what needs to be done there, and those in Africa given an opportunity to come to United States in this case, or other countries in Europe and South America, and any parts of the world you find Africa, they're all over, to be given opportunities as well to develop their business, opportunities to make money business-wise, even employment, yes, but more focusing on business. That is what creates even more opportunities for others. That is our show for today. As we've noted before, you can find us, you can watch us online. You can watch us online at afriquetodaytv.com. You can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter by the same name, Afrique Today TV. Thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you again in a week's time. Have a great week. Thank you.